Hello team, in this video we're going to learn few more use cases of using our bot together with a ChatGPT. We don't have any long agenda for today, because today we're actually not going to learn new tools, new approaches, new theory. Basically we're going to use the similar approach that we used in previous lesson, namely using GPT function call feature in order to invoke the correct function based on the context when it will be needed. That's why in this video we are going to review simple but still important and very useful business use cases. They are preparing, generating and sending email using chat interface. In this scenario we will ask our bot to prepare an email and it will use GPT to generate an email for us, and then I would ask bot to send an email to specific user telling just name of the user, and my bot together with GPT will handle the rest of the things. I'm going to show you in this lesson how it works, and I believe that this is really useful scenario to implement because it will save a lot of hours at work. And the second scenario that we're going to review today is generating a work items in Jira using chat interface. In previous lesson I showed you how to use Jira as data source and get additional context to answer end-user requests. Basically, when user asked our bot about state of the work, we did a request to Jira and added information about work items to the context. So in this lesson I am going to show you how to post data to Jira using our bot and ChatGPT. We'll keep using Jira API for such purposes and function calling mechanism. So technically speaking, we are going to use exactly the same approach we already used in previous lesson. The same approach, but different end result. Of course, during the course I will not be able physically to cover all possible variety of potential use cases where ChatGPT may be applied. But with this lesson I just want to give you a few more examples of how you can build powerful application using AI support. Let's start our lesson. And as I already mentioned, today we are going to have a lot of practical examples. So let me show you the end result that we are going to achieve by the end of the lesson. Imagine that you need to send an email. You clearly know what you want to send. You also know whom you want to send the email to. You just don't have too much time to put your thoughts on paper, prepare email and send it. Or you are as lazy as I am. Let me show you how a bot developed by me that takes advantage of GPT capabilities will help us to solve this task. I integrated GPT with developed by me web application that is integrated with the Slack Messenger too. So, at work, I just put commands in Slack every time I need help from GPT. In this case, let me ask GPT to prepare an email for John, who is manager in my company. And I want to invite John to the meeting to review the project he is working on, discuss KPIs, risks, and other project-related things. I need to warn him to be prepared for this meeting and tell him the exact time, date, and place of our meeting. So I just ask GPT to help me with this. Then GPT generates an email for me, and I must admit that the way how GPT structured this email is impressive. I have email subject here, I have email body here. I just need to put my signature and send it. But sometimes I'm so lazy that I just want to have big red button under my hand that will do everything what I need. So I even don't want to open my Outlook or Gmail or any other mail client. I just ask GPT to send this email to John Doe. I just add my signature at the end of the email and that's it. What does my bot do on the background? It understands, based on the context, that I want to send this email to John Doe. That's why it searches for his email address in the data source configured. It also understands where subject is finished and where email body is started. So the bot gives me proper arguments for my function that is in charge of sending emails based on the understanding of the context. And then I see confirmation that email was sent successfully. Amazing! Let me check the mailbox of John Doe. As you may guess, this is a demo user with a test mailbox that I created for the demo purposes. That's why I have access to his email. And as we can see on the screen, John received my mail 0 minutes ago. The receiving time is the same as confirmation in my Slack. Do you remember when you last time prepared and sent emails so fast? And of course, opportunities for customization are endless. You can book the online meeting if you wish, or place meeting event to calendar. There are no limits on the customization. Like I always say, that GPT is not a magic, but it is definitely a calculator for your brain. By saying this, I mean like obviously you can do the math in your head and calculate long numbers on paper, but you have calculator for this to boost your productivity, right? So we live in era of AI. Let's use these tools to become even more productive and efficient. Let me show you another example. Imagine that you have engineering team, and you need to create a bunch of user stories to fill out backlog for them. Of course you can do it manually, but let's take advantage of ChatGPT. And again, using our team messenger, I just tell GPT what I need. I ask it to create a user story that should be assigned to John Doe. I explain briefly what this user story is about. It is about cart component in the e-commerce web app that we work on right now. I also specified due date for this task. After waiting a few moments, GPT generated for me user story description with acceptance criteria and even generated a ticket in the Jira. Yeah, it is really fantastic. I use this tool that I developed in my company and it boosted the productivity in my team significantly. From now on, we don't have user stories without complete description. Like I said, GPT is not a magic tool. I still recommend to verify everything what was generated here, but it doesn't take so much time in comparison when we create requirements from scratch. Here is a direct link to the Jira ticket generated too. Let's click on it and see what we have there. You can see that issue type is story. I will teach you how to develop your bot in such a way that it would recognize what issue type you want to create in Jira. Summary, description, everything is on place. Pay attention that assignee is also configured. And due date is set to August 31st, like we asked. Amazing! And now imagine how this will boost productivity of your engineering teams. How much time and thus money will you able to save? And of course, this is just one simple example. Imagine that you can boost your planning or refinement sessions. For example, you can ask GPT to analyze the context and complexity of previously estimated user stories and ask it to make estimation of not estimated user stories. Of course, you can verify the estimation with the team and change it later if you wish, but again, this will boost your productivity. You can also ask the bot that uses GPT capabilities to calculate average team's velocity and prepare the scope of the next sprint based on the estimated tickets from the backlog. And even to make preliminary user stories assignment on team members. If only I was an owner of Jira software or Azure DevOps, I would implement inbuilt support of so many cool features. But while they are still working on them, inside my company I implemented custom solutions that I use with my team. Now it is time to review the source code and implementation. As always, you can find the source code in attachments to the video. Taking into account that in this lesson we are going to use the same approach that we already learned in previous lesson, I will show you demo and will make an overview of the implementation without stopping on the things that we already learned in previous lesson. And even in case you would have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask your questions below the video and I will be happy to answer. Let me start the review from the implementation of scenarios that will generate tickets for us in Jira. Basically, together we did a great job in previous lessons by implementing scalable architecture. That is the advantage of OOP approach in comparison to pure functional programming approach. The advantage becomes obvious on a bigger scale, and as amount of code grows, The logic and principles used to build OOP program helps us to scale faster and reliably without the risk of breaking the code that we wrote before. So the only thing that we need to do is to add additional functions that would be in charge of creation ticket in Jira. Because we already implemented code that gathers all beans of GPT functions and then request to call functions, all this was already implemented. So let me open beans configuration class. Here I declared bean of GPT function and called it GPT create Jira issue function. As usual, I created function, set name and description, and now let's talk about parameters. So my function would require GPT to define the following parameters based on the context and give me them in order I can make a request to Jira API. So I need assignee name, work item description. By the way, I expect that GPT will help me with both things, to find the description for work item in the context and actually to generate it based on my request first. So GPT will generate the full description for the work item, like you saw in the demo, and then it will give me the description in order I can create a work item in Jira. Also, I need issue type attribute in order to understand what work item I need to create. User story, task, epic, bug. You can see that I also pass array of possible issue types. In case ChatGPT can find information about due date based on the context, I would also ask it to provide me with it. And the summary of the work item for the title. In parameters, I also specified that summary, description, issue type, and due date are required attributes. But if you already worked with ChatGPT API in previous lessons, I believe that you already understand that all of this is just a recommendation for ChatGPT. So even in case it wouldn't find due date, it still can request to call the function but without due date. I had such cases, and I will be honest with you. I hope that guys from OpenAI will keep improving their product, but based on today, it works like this. Still, I decided to keep due date as required attribute. You can explore my source code and try different options and select the one that works the best for you to address your business needs. You can see that all values are configurable and located in my properties file. Feel free to explore the attribute descriptions, but I bet there will not be any surprises for you. I just described for ChatGPT what each attribute means. And in similar way, I created classes of required entities. I wouldn't stop on that too, because in previous lesson we also created classes for entities. So I can just confirm that I used this same approach and principles here. In case Jira will decide to invoke the function, I will take from the context create Jira issue function bean that I also configured here. Let's check this function. According to the interface, it implements one method, execute. So I parse arguments. In order to not parse arguments one by one, I created separate entity and parse all arguments directly to Jira issue fields object. In Jira service, I implemented method that is called create Jira issue. It will be in charge of creation of work item in Jira. Let me open the source code of the default Jira service class and show you the implementation of that method. And here you can see implementation of the method. Using Jira API documentation that we reviewed in the lesson about Jira API, I created URL and HTTP post request object. And here goes specifics of Jira API. I just need to prepare the body of the post request. And also for assignee, I need to extract Jira user ID, because according to API, it is not enough to pass the name. So based on the name, I extract Jira user ID, and I have separate method for that. In Jira Cloud, there is an endpoint that returns the array of users, and you can work with it as you wish in order to find Jira user ID. So I created here Jira request body object that contains fields property. Fields contains assignee, issue type, project, description, due date, summary. Then, set the Jira request body to the HTTP post object as an entity. This is interface of Apache HTTP client that we already used and learned before. That's why I don't stop on this too much. Then I should receive response from Jira. And here in commented lines you can see the example of response that I expect to receive. I extract only value of the key attribute. And in the create Jira issue function class you saw that I returned back the ID of the ticket in order GPT can let our end user know the ID of the ticket that was created. And also another important point. In order to improve user experience, in the default Slack service method, I created a method that is called add hyper references to Jira. This method finds the Jira tickets IDs based on the pattern configured in the regular expression that takes into account Jira project name, dash, and number, and substitute all Jira tickets mentions by adding hyperreference in the parentheses next to the Jira key. This is just an additional feature that I added in order to improve user experience for end user by having link to the Jira in the chat, like you saw in the demo. Basically, that's it. Like I said, you can find the reference to the source code in attachments to the video. Feel free to look through the solution. I believe there will be nothing new to you because we learned already everything what is required to implement this solution. But still, in case you would have any specific question, I am here to help. Let's review now the second scenario with sending an email. In the similar way, let me start overview from the beans configuration file. I declared a bean that is called GPT-send-email function. I tell GPT which parameters I expect in order I can send an email. So it is either addressee email or addressee name. And again, everything will depend on the environment you work in and business requirements. For example, current solution will send an email in case there will be email address in the context. And it will also send an email in case there will not be email address in the context, but in case ChatGPT can get the full name of the addressee from the context. In this case, ChatGPT will give me a name, and I will find email address in the third-party data source. And in my case, I can integrate with internal data source where I can find email by full name. For example, I can find email in Active Directory or whatever tool your organization uses, even from Excel file if needed. So just check the business requirements and decide how you want to implement this part of functionality. And there are also two other attributes that we need: email subject and email content. That's it. Required attributes are content and subject. In case ChatGPT will not be able to identify neither email address nor name of the addressee, in this case I will let end user know that I can't execute this function and that I need either email or full name. Then, in case ChatGPT would ask me to call this function, I will extract send email function bean from the context. Let's check how it is implemented. In the send email function bean, I injected mail service. This is the type that will be responsible for sending an email. In the execute method during the passing of the arguments, in case there is no email or addressee name, I return the message that tells that email wasn't sent and why. In case there is no email but there is an addressee name, I try to extract email address first of our user. In case full email address can't be found, I send back information that email wasn't sent and explain the reason why. You can see that I use extract email by full name method from email service in order to extract the email. This is exactly the method that you need to decide how you would implement it. You can read email addresses and full names from external data source, like for example from the database, from Active Directory, from Excel file, whatever data source you like the most. In this specific learning example, I hard-coded map with full names and email addresses. Taking into account this is application for my students, I don't want to overcomplicate this example with one more integration. One day we'll learn about integration with Active Directory and we will update this example because it is a separate larger topic to talk about, not in scope of this lesson. And send email method is implemented right above in the same file. I configured Gmail SMTP server for sending emails. And again, this method can be implemented in different ways. You can use dedicated email client for sending emails from your bot, or you can find the way to authenticate and authorize access of the end user to his or her email. And this configuration can be done during the bot installation, or when start using the bot. Again, there is unlimited variety of options of how you can build this integration. The main thing is that you understand the key principles, and if you understand them well, you are limited only with your fantasy of how you want to implement this. In the send email function source code, you can see that in case email was sent and send email method returned true in case of success, I notify my bot and GPT that email was sent. In case there was some exception during email sending, send email method will return false and will confirm that email wasn't sent with adding reasoning message. Basically that's it. If you are interested in how I send an email, you can spend a little bit more time reviewing the source code of the default mail service. Even in case you would have any questions or in case you would like me to review this topic in details, I am just 2 clicks away. You can write your question below this video and I will be happy to answer. Okay, that's it for this lesson. Let's recap what we have learned today. In this lesson we reviewed 2 scenarios, 2 business use cases of how you can apply your knowledge and practice with ChatGPT. They are creating work item in Jira, generating description and summary for Jira ticket directly from the Slack. And the second scenario, preparation of email and sending it via chat interface. That's all for today. Thanks a lot for your attention. Have a great day and see you in the next lesson.